The four tones in group presumably originated from the loss of the final glottal stop and the loss of the voicing contrast in onsets. The final fricative is still preserved in the language. The tones are not just pitch height and pitch contour, they are differentiated by a bundle of phonetic cues reminiscent of the register contrast found in many Austroasiatic languages. Therefore, one could say that group has a hybrid system of tone and register. In this study, I will focus on tone in syllables which are historically thorough-sounding and in syllables which are final fricative. They are traditionally called A1, A2, C1, and C2 tones. This study aims to find out which phonetic cues are used by group listeners to identify the tones, and to see if there's a link between production and perceptual weights of each cue. The stimuli were class synthesized in part to mimic the two tonal pairs of A1 versus A2 and C1 versus C2 by manipulating for acoustic properties of Vietic, F0, voice quality, and vowel quality. Now we can hear four representative stimuli whose parameters are the most typical of the four tones. Listener had to listen to the stimuli and decide which words they heard by pressing corresponding keyboard buttons. After the perception task, some participants also recorded two minimal pairs identical to the stimuli. Mixed effects logistic regression were fitted to the dataset as a whole and into individuals' data. For production data, coincidence, a measure of effect size, were calculated for each property. This graph shows the proportion of responses to the high tones of A1 on the left side and C1 on the right side by the four parameters. For the syllable ta, a higher F1, a higher F0, and a lower OQ or a tensor voice quality favor high-tone A1 choices. VOT does not seem to play a role. For the syllable ta, a higher F1 clearly favors high-tone C1 choices. Other factors do not seem to play a role. Statistical results confirm that for the syllable ta, a higher F1 and F0 elicit significantly more A1 responses. A breathier voice quality significantly favors A2 responses, and the effects of other factors and oral interactions are not significant. With the syllable ta, a high F1 alone can predict the choice of the high tone C1. Voice quality and F0 are both significant, but the effect of the former is larger than that of the latter. 20 and 30 millisecond VOTs in combination with a high F1 significantly favor tone C2 choices, and the same effect is found for a breathier voice quality in combination with a higher F0. In this graph, coherence scores of each acoustic cue by individuals are on the x-axis, representing production weight, and logouts of corresponding factors from the model fitted to individuals' data are on the y-axis, representing perceptual weight. Generally, the most salient cues in perception are the same as in production, but there's no correlation between production and perceptual weight within its acoustic property. For the syllable ta, both F1 and F0 are strong production and perceptual cues, with F1 being more prominent. Voice quality also plays a role, but VOT is less reliable in both modalities. For the syllable ta, F1 is the most prominent cue in both modalities. F0 have very limited effect in perception and no significant effect in production. To conclude, F1 is the most prominent perceptual and production cue in both minimal pairs, especially the pair of C1 versus C2. Therefore, root tones include a significant segmental component. This again confirms the claim that root has a hybrid system of tone and register, from both production and perception point of views. The final fricative raises the F0 of the preceding vowel, contrary to the classical tonogenesis hypothesis. However, F0 is not distinctive in production and plays a more limited role in perception of the tonal pair C1 versus C2 compared to that of A1 versus A2. VOT is longer in syllables with low tones A2, C2 than with the high tone A1, C1, but its perceptual weight is not robust in the syllable ta, or even not significant in the syllable ta. Production and perceptual cues roughly match. However, there's no direct link between production and perception within each cue at the individual level.